Hello everyone. So I talked about this when I was in Finland in May this year. It was being talked about by the Social Democrats, and the Social Democrats are going to put forward a bill in the House of the Oireachtas and the Dáil to lower the voting age to 16. Now, there's a few things to say here, so bear with me a second just to try and get all the stuff out that I have to say about this. So I said in that video too, I did have about 5 years ago, I would have said, I probably would have agreed with them. I would have said, yeah, we should, because young people should have a voice. But nowadays, not so much, and I'll explain why in a second. Because, first of all, I don't think even myself too, even just realising, because opinions going to change over time, of course. But the thing about it is, it's not until you get older you realise, when you pay taxes and stuff, you realise how fucked the system is. And a lot of people, a lot of young people particularly, when you see, and again, oftentimes in life I was misled. I used to be a supporter of Sinn Féin and stuff, but Sinn Féin's not the answer. They promise the moon out and stars. But when you look behind the curtain and see what's behind the curtain, not great. Sinn Féin are not for the Irish, for Ireland. They're all about everything else, but Ireland's not included in that. But it's the same with the majority of political parties. They don't have the best interest in you. What I'm trying to say, they have the best interest in other endeavours and stuff like that. But they don't have an interest in the Irish people, and that's the thing. And it's all about people. It's not about money, and it's not about power, because at the end of the day, the majority of them are corrupted by power. They're too worried about power, and they're too worried about influence and money. That's their drive. That's their god, money, and that's the thing. The majority of people in the door, that's their god. They don't care about anything else. Money's their power. Money's everything. Where it should be about people, and that's the thing. But I don't agree with it. Years ago, as I said, I would have, because, and there's two sides to this argument, and I understand people too that argue, say, yeah, we should lower it. But this is the thing, it would make probably no difference, because not many young people would turn out to vote, because a lot of young people, regardless if you vote for the man on the moon, you're not going to get much in life. Irish people particularly are not going to get much. There's still a plane ticket or a boat ticket never to return, pretty much, and that's the sad reality for a lot of young people. Regardless of who you vote for, it's the same with us. You will be forced to leave because there's no hope for you of get any kind of life for yourself. And it's a sad thing to say, but it sadly is the truth. I've seen so many young people saying, oh, democracy, freedom, etc. I'm going to vote for Sinn Féin, I'm going to vote for the Labour Party. They're going to solve the problem. And then 5 years later, off they go to Australia. It made no difference regardless of who they voted for. And it's a sad thing to say, and not to mention too, a lot of young people won't bother to vote. And I wouldn't really blame them, to be told, because it's kind of senseless at this stage, because nothing ever changes, it seems. Nothing ever happens, as they say. But, I do agree to a certain extent. A lot of young people, the problems that we're facing at the moment, particularly housing, and other stuff too, even immigration and stuff like that, and even healthcare and stuff, and crime and safety, it affects young people, and affects obviously my generation more, because we're going to live longer compared to somebody that's 80 years old or 90 years old. It has more of an impact, for example, on us, on my generation. But at the same time too, it comes with great responsibility voting too. What I mean by that is, you have to know because again, you're putting somebody, take for example, even your local TD or your local councillor, you're giving them a mandate to go in and represent you, the people of Cavan, take for example, as a councillor. You're putting your name, you're putting your vote in that person, you're putting your trust, that they would look after the county, have the best interest, take for example, the people of Cavan in mind. And in a lot of cases they don't. They care about themselves, that's all. They care about their back pocket. They don't care about anybody else. And it's a sad thing to say, but it's just the reality. And it's the power to a lot of people. Some people who go into have good intentions, but when they get into that position, it's always power. And it's always more money, more power, more this, more that. And it's just an endless cycle. The cycle just keeps repeating. But I don't think, the Social Democrats are talking about having a referendum. And to be totally honest, I would vote against it, to be totally honest, and to be straight up with you. I understand people again making that argument. It's not like it's absolutely absurd. I get that. If some people want to have a right to vote at 16 and they say, it's my future and stuff like that, I get that. I understand that. It's a valid point. It is a valid point. But at the same time, I do think it overweighs. But when you get to 18, you pay taxes. You mainly get a job or you go to college. You understand a bit more. When you're 16, you're at secondary school. You don't understand the world. I have a different... everybody changes. So in life, you change, and your brain doesn't fully develop too until you're 21. But even just as a citizen who pays his taxes and stuff, my taxes go to fuck all. It goes down the drain. It just disappears. It just doesn't go anywhere. So it's not until you're 18 when you realise, when you pay taxes and stuff, that you understand a bit more. And I do think when you get to 18, you understand a bit more about life, and because every year you live, you understand a bit more. Like even just speaking as somebody that's 22, you understand a lot more when life goes on and different years go on. You understand, you see more things, you experience more. And sadly, there's a lot of suffering and pain and all of that stuff due to governments and all that kind of charades. But I don't know, but they're saying too, just one of the things they're saying about the elections of Irish elections are very low. But see, it benefits the Social Democrats because they're saying we give you free this, free that, and free the other. And just to put on the record too, I'm not in favour of giving people anything for free, even Irish citizens. I do think you should work for it, but I do think it should be fair. What I mean to say, that people, it's achievable, it's up and achievable, not like when you're 105 that you pay off your mortgage. But I do think it should be achievable for young people that you can get a house and you can rent a house for a reasonable rate. I don't think that's much to ask for, that it's something reasonable, it's not outrageous. And I think that's fair, but we're not going to give it to you for free. Nobody should get things for free in life, you have to work for it. Regardless if you're Irish or from Timbuktu, etc. But obviously Irish citizens should get a bit of a leg up from the government to help them out, to get them on that stepping stone when they first start out in life. They should get a leg up in terms of grants, etc. But not the full, let's say 20% of the way, and you have to work your way to the rest of the percent. That makes sense. So you have the foundations. So the way I describe it, you have the foundations, and you can build up from there. Once you're given the foundations, you can use them blocks to build up. If that makes any sense. It's all about getting a good foundation in life, getting a good start. That's the way to say it too. Getting a good start, and getting a good mindset too is important, because at the moment in time, I wouldn't blame young people for losing hope in society when you look around you. But we see what happens. But if it did come to a referendum in the morning, I would vote against, to be totally honest. 5 years ago, you would have asked me, I would have said I would vote forward. And again, I understand the argument, it's my future, etc., etc. I'm going to be a citizen of the country. But in a lot of cases, a lot of citizens who are 16 or even below that now, who are going to be, say if this does pass, they have to have it next year. It wouldn't make any difference, because in less than 5 years' time, then people won't be here. They'll be in another country, never to return, because basically the politicians have sold them out to Davos and to other countries. But yeah, let me know what you think. Again, as I say, I'm not going to shout people down. You have your opinion, you have your right to your opinion. That's democracy. But again, if it did happen in the morning, people voted forward, I respect the right of the people to vote. For this, respect the right of the people. We see what happened. Most likely not. The government does somewhat to get another bruising and stuff. And it probably wouldn't benefit them too much too, because you have to remember, a lot of young people are thinking about getting a house, renting the house, moving out of the parents' place, and they're kind of looking around them and they're kind of like, no, this is not going to work well for us. But they will look for easy solutions, to Social Democrats, etc., etc. Promise everything. It's a pity we don't have more like Santa Marin, but it's a pity. Because that's real leadership right there. We're lacking that in Ireland, unfortunately. There's nobody in Ireland that's a real leader in terms of in Dáil Éireann or Shannon. There's nobody really that stands out from the crowd. But anyway, let me know what you think. Subscribe for more, and bye.